Good evening and welcome to the Velocity of Now. I'm your host Thomas Sheridan. It's the 20th of April 2016 and I hope you're all keeping well and you got through the last week and survived all these bloody earthquakes they've had in Asia. I saw some remarkable photographs of land literally being pushed sideways like it was a piece of paper torn and then rearranged in a different position. It really is amazing when you see the power of these things and what they can do. And that really is about tonight's show. It's about magic, the idea of magic. Now, magic to many people it has different meanings, but I'll give you an example of magic that's real. Once again, and people can check this on the Facebook page, those of you in the Velocity of Now Dream Project, just like you did with Tianjin in China and unfortunately the Bataclan Art Center in Paris, you reported to me that you were dreaming about something happening in Asia, and that's where the earthquakes happened. So I'd say that we got a 50 to 60% hit there, not the 100% hit of Tianjin in China and the industrial explosion. And I'd say we got about 80% in the Paris attacks, where people reported, they didn't say Paris, but they said an attack on a cultural center, a terrorist attack or a false flag attack on a cultural center. So that's magic, because what that was is that it allowed you to pull something from your collective unconscious and then spool it into this reality as a statement. And I'm not the magician here. It's kind of a collective accidental magic that really happens. But magic is everywhere. People who think that magic is not real or is not part of their life, hopefully tonight we'll change that. We'll change this for you. And I'll explain to you why magic is important. I'll give you an example of black magic. Now, black magic is the magic that takes something and makes you believe something against your will. Now, advertising and things like that is loaded with black magic, marketing, public relations, this need to make you buy things that you don't want, using language to make you want things, using social things to make you want things. For instance, like convertible sports cars on TV back in the 50s with the guy, and he has a beautiful bikini girl on American TV in the 60s, and even added in songs by the Beach Boys like, you know, Everyone Goes Surfing, Surfing USA. That was all designed to play a black magic spell on young men, that if they didn't have the convertible Mustang and the beautiful bikini girl beside him, then he was some kind of a failure as a man. They needed to implement this kind of black magic because the idea of serving yourself or proving yourself as a man through military has really been irrelevant ever since we've had the invention of gunpowder, and specifically since automatic weapons in, say, the First World War. You could not really be a gallant, excellent soldier on the field when you're charging into the Somme and there's 100 German machine gunners firing diagonally, indiscriminately into the charging masses. It's quite different than when you charge in the battle with a sword or a bow and arrow or even an old musket with a bayonet. You had to plan how you moved across the battlefield. You had to employ a certain strategy and then show bravery and gallantry when you reached the other lines. That's impossible when you're having machine guns, landmines and drones. So the idea of a man in the West particularly proving himself through battle and combat was over, and there was a void there for that. So the advertisers and the marketing and the public relations people created the magic spell of young men have to have this amount of money, this kind of car, these kinds of looks, this kind of haircut in order to have a woman. And they played the same thing on the women as the idea of motherhood decreased and the pill came along and less women were having babies. Instead of being mothers and grandmothers and maternal and mavens for the family, what they did then was they had to create this idea that the woman had to be, first of all, in the 60s and 70s, the perfect kitchen to keep up the Joneses, this kind of idea. And when she went into the workplace, she had to have everything perfect, look perfect. These are all magic. This is magic because there's no law of nature that says you have to do these things. It doesn't exist anywhere. But you are made do them because even if it's not overtly put in your head, it's subliminally put into your head. And that's how you prove yourself. The 3 feathers that they give people today, give men today, are not for not signing up in bravery of war. The 3 feathers they get today are for not having the same kind of lifestyle as a Hollywood star or a rock star. That's why you have so much of this notion that anyone can be a rock star now. You have like drinks called rock star. You have people who believe, like they wear things like Lynx or these kinds of male colognes, that they'll have the sex appeal of a rock star. Dick pics, that's replaced like the plaster casters that they had in the 70s. And that's magic too, because whenever you have a cultural vacuum in terms of a role fulfillment in that society that has run out, that's when the black magicians come in. So when motherhood dies, the black magicians in marketing, advertising, and feminism come in. When warriors die, the black marketers in advertising and so on, rock music, the lot, they all come in and they try to tell you this is the new way you can prove yourself as a man. And that's black magic. Because in reality, if war came to an end and you say, well, there's no wars anymore, fuck this, I'm not joining up. It's just indiscriminate killing, and the chances are, no matter how brave or tactical I am on the battlefield, I don't have any more chance than the fella I'm spraying bullets at. In a society not subject to black magic, that would just be ignored. That would just be forgotten about. And they say, well, okay, that's the end of that. But they still create this new way of actually attaining manhood. And it's not the rite of passage manhood that you have in indigenous societies, where a young boy at 13 has to go off and live in the woods, kill an animal for a few weeks, that kind of thing. It's purely just to take your psychic energy and use the sorcery of that, the enchantment of that, to get your money. And that's magic too, because you're exchanging your financial energy, which you've garnished from your work energy, your employment energy, and you channeled that into the black magicians. That's a very simple example of magic. All magic is the idea of something that exists in the mind being transferred into the material world. That's all it is. Now, the difference between that and ritual magic is very different. Ritual magic is a case of extreme will through the form of a ritual being put into an extreme pure of energy, an extreme stream of energy, a pure stream of high energy that allows you to achieve things that were previously very difficult or seemingly impossible. So a magic ritual could be somebody going on a talent show and really saying, this is my moment, this is my chance to do it, and delivering the performance of a lifetime that sets them up for the rest of their lives. There's lots of things like this. Do you remember like Queen at Live Aid? The band had went down on stage and just basically rejuvenated their career and changed their whole focus of the band, because they took their skill on that day and they took it up a notch, and they really showed the world how to be a great band, how to be a great performer. And even people who didn't really like Queen or didn't really like music, they were taken in by the charge, because the pure stream of energy that day created a focus where, as a result, they sold millions of albums. And the reason why Queen sold those millions of albums and did so well at Live Aid is they were the only band playing on the stage that day in Wembley that were honest about it. Queen openly stated beforehand that they were only doing it for the publicity, because they hadn't been on tour for a while, and if any charity came out of that, then that was good. So they went on stage to rock and roll. They did not go on stage to save or feed the world. That was black magic, to go on stage and say, I'm here today, a millionaire rock star like Phil Collins, to save the world by flying on Concorde between London and Philadelphia to sing my shitty songs. There's a difference between that and band Queen saying, we're going to go on stage and rock the fucking place raw, because that's what we want to do in front of the biggest audience we can find. And as a result, they were the ones who created the magic that day. They had the purest stream of unfettered energy because it was honest energy. It was direct energy. And here's the real truth of it, that you cannot use any method of creating that stream of energy that's dishonest. You just cannot do it. You have to be as pure as possible in your intent. Your will has to be absolute. And the more absolute your will is, the more you will change reality. Now, people will say, what do you mean by changing reality? Can you tell me right now that if I get a lotto ticket and I will myself to win, that those lotto numbers will appear on the screen? No, that's not magic. And even if you did win, that'd be black magic, because you did not create the necessary energy to attain that $1 million or €1 million or £1 million on the lotto. You simply went out and you bluffed your way by buying a ticket. This is why so many people who win these lottos end up miserable, broke after no time, unhappy, and a lot of them will say, I wish I never won the lotto. Because what's happening is, because they did not expend any real energy in obtaining that money will then extract the energy from them in terms of their happiness and their life fulfillment. The energy always, as I said to you, the universe and the cosmos and reality operates under an accounting system that's flawless. It's a flawless accounting system, and all debts are paid and all accounts are settled in the end. And once you understand that, then you understand that you can actually go and work for magic. Now, this is not like the Secret, where you sit down and wish for things to happen. It's very different. So how do we make that $1 million? Well, you don't do it by picking the lotto ticket. As I says, if you win a lotto ticket, it will not work out for you. You have to unleash forces inside you to get that million. So my belief is that everybody has a skill that's marketable on some level, even if you think you don't. So say you can write music. Well, if you write a jingle or a piece of music and sell it to an advertiser and it gets used in a Coca-Cola or some other Apple or some other big commercial on TV, you get your million that way. If you are a writer and you write a really good story and you get out there and you push and you push and push it, you might get your million that way. Now, very few of you will get the million, because very few of you, including myself, has that much psychic energy to produce that level of a stream of action. Sorry, a stream of intention from the action. But suppose you do create that piece of music, and let's see, other options will open for you then, because you now created, let's say, okay, you've written a song and you're trying to give it to advertisers and saying, please buy my song or piece of music for your movie soundtrack and I'll get my million. Well, it won't, maybe it doesn't happen, but let's look at that stream of energy. Doesn't go to waste, because your magic will still produce something. So you might put it on YouTube, and some girl that hears it might think it's wonderful, you meet her, fall in love and get married and produce a child. You didn't produce $1 million, but you produced a child. You still haven't faced and you've fallen in love. You still haven't wasted that stream of energy you began. You may end up selling it for $50, £50, €50, but you got £50, $50 and €50 you didn't have before, from the stream of energy that from your creativity. You've taken something in your mind, brought it into manifestation, and changed it into energy. And that energy has produced money. You may meet a guy in a band who hears your music and he says, you know, I can't for the life of me sell my music either. Two of you get together, you knock heads together, and you form an agency that starts to get music to address this issue, that starts to deliver music directly to movie producers, TV producers, and advertising companies. And suddenly it's not your music that's made it, but you're on a salary of 100, 200 grand a year, and you're doing very well. The stream of energy never goes to waste. And I always say this to people, and you've been hearing me this from day one, you must create. There's no loss in creativity. None at all. There's absolutely no loss in creativity, because somewhere down the line it will deliver. But the important thing is, you don't create and then leave it at home. You have to you have to charge that stream of energy by getting out there, either putting it on the internet and sharing it on YouTube, or getting out there and playing it live. No matter what you do, writing a book, just get the damn book and publish it. But it'll never go to waste. You'll always achieve something that you didn't achieve from before. Now, the magical intent is the act of creativity from something in your will and it put out there into the world. But the magician soon learns to work that energy in such a way that it becomes a building block to build something upon. And if you see ritual magic, it works. Now, ritual sorcery, occult magic, works exactly the same way. The initial ritual is built upon by more and more rituals, and more energy is built up to an extreme form of focus. You just don't go in there and go abracadabra, 1, 2, 3, click your fingers and it happens. It takes work. Magic is work, but it's not employment. Remember that. It's work, but it's not employment. You're not a slave. Magic allows you to transform situations for your benefit in lots of ways, But the thing is, and here's the secret, not the secret, the book. This is the secret to making magic work, is to appreciate the small things rather than to complain about them. So if you wrote a book with the intention of saying, I want to make $1 million, sell the rights to a Hollywood producer and sell hundreds of thousands of copies, and you only sell 40 copies, be thankful for the 40 and be proud of the 40 that you achieved. Because if you're not and you say, oh shit, I only sold 40, it's a failure, well then you're putting a black magic curse on yourself, because you've turned that energy into the bottom half of the sine wave and it's become a negative signal. It's become a negative signal. This is a huge mistake. Now, this also brings us up to the idea of rivalries. We often see TV shows and films like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, where you have Gandalf the Grey and Saruman. In reality, wizards do not battle one another. They do not battle one another because it's too much energy that's needed for other things. So therefore, suppose you start a business, carpentry business, open a shop, and you have a friend who starts a business, something similar. Well, if you start to see yourself in a rivalry with your friend or with your family member, you're immediately destroying your stream of energy because your focus is now on them and beating them. So therefore what you're doing is you're actually, competition is not healthy when it comes to things like this, because you need all the energy you have to focus on your thing. And as soon as you see that they're doing better than you will start to destroy your stream of energy through envy and through resentments and through petty jealousies, and the focus is off. It's like taking a bead with a rifle. Suddenly you get on target and then something draws you off target and you miss. Secondly, these resentments are very, very toxic. Another thing, if you do better than your friend or your relative in your business compared to theirs, you must not be boastful in any way in terms of they got what they deserved and so on. Now, even if they're resentful of you, just ignore it. Just ignore it. Weak men and women do things like this. Weakness is about resentment is weakness. It's a weakness of the psychic force. Now, I know it sounds easy, and it's not easy. It's hard. But you see, if you want to be a magician, you have to train yourself like a muscle to actually strengthen and solidify and copper fasten your will. So if someone runs off with your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or your boyfriend, all the hatred in the world, and I'm not saying the hatred initially is wrong, but all the hatred in the world is not going to make them come back. Not at all. It's not going to come back. So what you need to, and now on all the, what's the word? All the, all that energy focused on that is what you need for something else. So if you can take that energy, say you've been dumped by your girl for your best friend or your fella for your best friend, if you can write a song about that, you have transferred that energy. But be careful, don't make it, don't let them know that it's about them. I know that sounds weird, but you must be as vague as possible, because that will undo the stream of energy also, because it's another form of resentment. Look, hey, look at me, I'm getting back at you by writing a song. It doesn't work. This is how you train your will. If I was to start a school, the first thing I would do to teach kids is to focus their will. To focus their will away from what they can change and towards what they can change. This is why they give you sports. You put all your hopes in a sports team. If they lose, there's nothing you can do about it. Same with politics. Let's look at this guy, Bernie Sanders. Now, this is a masterclass in black magic we're witnessing. What Bernie Sanders is, and the people he's drawn to, he is, in essence, he's almost like, imagine that Obama was a god, right? A god, and that's how he was portrayed. He's been an incredibly disappointing person to all the people that celebrated him as a godhead in 2007 and 2008. And all they have to show for it is mountains of burning corpses and him holding his Nobel Prize. Those resentments are building up in those people, but they do not want to feel like they were duped. So because of this monstrosity of Christianity in the West, they have a salvation need. See, this is the greatest crime of Christianity in the West is to create this idea of salvation, that somebody external to yourself must save you. That's why Christianity is a form of Satanism or black magic, in my opinion, because it tells you have original sin and only someone else can save you. So therefore it attacks you before you're even born. Christianity attacks you before you've even come out of the womb. And so people grow up with this need for a savior, a salvation psychosis. And that's where, so what happens is when Obama lets them down and betrays them, it's so difficult for them to say or admit, I have been duped or I've been made a fool of by this charlatan. He's just another asshole in politics. Rather than doing that, the forces that be take all that psychic disappointment and then they reassemble it as a golem in the guise of Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders is a golem constructed from the refuge and flotsam of the Clinton failure. Sorry, not of the Obama failure. And in many ways, yeah, he was also the Clinton failure too as well. He's a golem. He's a golem of Americans' frustration with their inability to walk away from the spell. They know in their hearts it's a spell, just like cult members know they're full of shit. But it takes an awful lot for a human being to admit they're wrong. So this golem of Bernie Sanders, you hear people say things like it's all about the man and it's all about the policies and not about the man. And yet the Bernie Sanders cult, that's what it is. They're obsessed with images of him. They watch videos of him all day. Look what Bernie did. Look what Bernie did. He's ordering an ice cream. I love this guy. And they put it on screen. I saw a video of him the other day going to see an art gallery in New York of images that are nothing but him. And yet we're told that his policy was about the policies and not the man. And that's clear out gaslighting, absolute out and out gaslighting. It's like cults. Cults gaslight their members by making videos or doing reports on other cults like Jonestown. And this is not that they lack irony, but this is the gaslighting, to gaslight their members to say, look, you're not in a cult. Jonestown was a cult, but you're not in the cult. This kind of thing. It's all the time the black magic is played. Now, if you put your hopes in a politician, in a football team, in a sports star, in an X Factor star, in anything like this that's external to you, you're basically handing the black magicians the wand to put a curse upon you, to knock you down. And this is what's so important, that you do not do that. You can admire someone who's a sports star, and you could say, wow, he's a really good player. They're a very impressive team. I can do that. I still do that. You can look at someone like Conor McGregor and say, yeah, he's really impressive. But when he gets the shit kicked out of him like he did last time, you just say, well, that's just it. That's just the end of it. Or your team loses and gets relegated, doesn't qualify for the World. You say, well, that's just the end. That's just the way it is. It's the emotional attachment that creates the pure stream of energy that's being taken out of you. It's being conducted out of you. And this is when magic is everywhere. And once you start to understand this, once you create the focus of your will by detachment from things you can't change, you will suddenly find that you have a psychic stockpile and energy for things you can change. Now, I've been practicing magic most of my adult life, though I'm talking about ritual magic, I did give up on it for about 10 years, not for any bad reason or anything. It was just that my life had went in a direction that, looking back on it now, was very inauthentic to myself. And I was creating black magic through playing the game. And looking back on it now, I probably should not have done that. Also, one of the reasons I haven't got deeply into ritual magic is that you really do need an entity, a being of some kind, to focus your will upon. It could be anything. It could be Mitra. It could be anything. It could be any being from mythology, Odin, Kali, anything. I just haven't found the entity that I'd want to focus my will on. There are very attractive entities that would provide the enormous amounts of psychic energy required for me to take it to the next level. But they require, I haven't, like, a Kali would be one, Lucifer would be another, Indra would be another one, and so on. These kinds of entities, they would be very good entities for me personally to focus my energy on, but they're still not what I'm looking for. So the reality is, I haven't found the entity yet that really gives me what I'm looking for. And that's the main reason I never got deeply into ritual magic. Now, when I say I got into ritual magic, I can tell you for a fact that I've cast spells that have come true. But I've never done them out of greed or something for myself. They've been defense spells to defend myself and send the energy back. And believe me, I've actually destroyed people who went out to attack me for no reason. Now, there was times I brought it on myself, so I would never send it back at them. I'll work through a different way. But when anyone like these lunatics who've attacked me on the internet, I mean, the reason why they don't exist on the internet anymore and you can't find them is because, well, let's put it this way: it's probably best that we don't know. And I bet you one thing: I bet they wished that they never ever came after me in the way they did for no reason. I did nothing to them. I did nothing except repel the energy back. I first learned this when I was a teenager in school, and I bought a book of ritual magic, quite a complex one, and I started to make talismans. And the talismans were to help me pass exams and also to deal with bullies in school. And I started to make talismans and charms, and lo and behold, they started to work very powerfully and very quickly. And it frightened me when it first happened, and I put them away and I stopped. And then after a few months, I realized that it wasn't the talismans that were doing it. I read this I managed to get, of all things, an astrology book written by Aleister Crowley in a secondhand bookshop. And I was trying to learn about astrology, and I'm still trying to learn about it. It still greatly confuses me. And although I do believe there is something to it, but Crowley's introduction in the book, it was just a paperback, just a paperback in a paperback secondhand shop. And it made me laugh because the first thing he did was attack William Butler Yeats, the poet. And he said something like, in debt he'll never be fully recognized, or something like that. When Yeats dies, he'll never be fully recognized. Now, I remember laughing at that because William Butler Yeats is such an icon here in Ireland. He's so famous that no one knows who Crowley is in Ireland, but, well, only a few people, but like everyone knows who Yeats is, and everyone around the world knows who Yeats is. But here we are many years later, and the grave of William Butler Yeats is not far from where I live. And lo and behold, it turns out that the bones inside the grave are probably not his, are probably only one or two of his bones, because he died before World War II and was buried in a lime pit, a mass grave. And when they got his body back, they just picked any bones they could to make a human skeleton. And here's Crowley saying in this book years ago that in debt, Yeats will still not be recognized. And this is magic. This is the strangeness of it, and the poetic nature of it. You see, magic is I'll talk about this a little bit. Magic is a very rich, poetic and theatrical thing, and that's part of the focus as well. Now, but in this book on astrology, Crowley had mentioned that the talismans and the sigils and all the other manifestations, they're not really doing it. It's the magician doing it. So if you create a talisman saying, I'm determined to pass, I want to pass my geography exam, it wasn't a talisman that did that. It was you unleashed memories of your geography lesson inside your head that came out when the exams came. And you also had an element of confidence, the crutch. And this also brought out these forces too inside you. So the talisman did two things. It unlocked, because I was able to focus on that rather than the fear of failure, it unlocked the memories of the geography lesson in my head that I'd forgotten about. That's magic number one. Magic number two, it had given me confidence, I mean bravado really, but still enough to not walk into the geography exam terrified like I used to be. As a result, I didn't make mistakes and I passed. And that the magic spell worked. But it wasn't the talisman, it wasn't the charms, it wasn't anything like that. It was the totemistic aspect of it that gave it to me. Purely a focus. My stream of energy was directed towards passing the exam because the talisman had removed it, or had removed the doubts and the stumbling blocks and the things that would be in the way, the blockades of energy that allowed me to pass the exam. And that's magic. And then I took it very, very seriously after that. And it served me very well in my life. I've never ever put a black magic spell on anyone because that's extremely dangerous. I'm in the point where I've never wished death upon anyone or wished illness upon anyone. And not because I'm a wonderful man who loves these bastards. It's just that I'm not going to risk my ass for them. That's also magic as well, is knowing your limitations and applying wisdom. This is one of the failings of many people who get into magic. We see that with Jack Parsons, is that they had so much success that they eventually kills them. A hubris appears into it. This hubris comes in, and this hubris was dangerous. Because when you have developed the hubris, what you then have is false will. You have false power and false streams of energy. And you're not in control again. You're not in control again. You're not focused. You're not applying wisdom. A few years ago, I did a talk in Bath called Painting Yourself Out of a Corner. And in that talk, which is on YouTube, I pointed to an image of the all-seeing eye on top of the pyramid, and I said, you know what that is? That's just a picture of a pyramid with an eye on the top. And I could literally feel at this alternative event like a balloon of the pressure on the hall dropping. I gave people the permission to see that thing, that image, what they call the all-seeing eye, as nothing other than a graphic. I said to them, that's all that is. It's nothing. Picture of an eye, picture of a triangle. That's the end of it. When you say things like, this is the symbol of the Illuminati and their power over us, you put a black magic spell upon yourself. The Illuminati, who don't exist, have not put the spell on you. You have put the spell on you. You have bewitched yourself. You have imprisoned and spellbound yourself. Nobody else. Nobody else. If you do that with a flag of the oppressor, your country gets invaded and the oppressor's flag goes up, you look at that and go, that's the fucking flag. You have put yourself under a spell because that's what they want. When you hate a politician for passing policies, you have put a black magic spell on yourself. You're taking your energy away. You have to learn apathy, and apathy is a byproduct of will. Will is everything. You must have will. And apathy is almost like the blank page. Apathy to your oppressors is almost like the blank page on which you can paint the brushstrokes of your own liberation. But if you look at the blank, if you have okay, here's a good one for you. Those of you who are hung up on these Illuminati symbols or these things like that, get yourself a blank sheet of paper, right? And on that blank sheet of paper, I want you to draw the all-seeing eye with the triangle on it, right? Just draw it. 3 sides of the triangle, the oval in the center for the eye, and 2 circles in the middle representing the pupil. Do it in pencil. Look at it for a second and think about all those Alex Jones videos and all these other things, the stupid pop stars making the triangle sign and all this other nonsense. Then get yourself an eraser and rub it out. Rub it out. Just slowly rub it out and rub it out. And then dust off the pieces of rubber and the pieces of charcoal or lead from the page to one side until you have a blank page in front of you. And all you have then is the indentation of the triangle or the all-seeing eye. Okay? We've rubbed it out. Now on top of that, write your own first name in pen. You've won. You've broken the curse. The curse that has been imposed upon you by your so-called truth gurus and that you have fed into your own psychosis. Now I want you to do the same with somebody who you hate in your life and has really got you down. Someone who's broken your heart, someone's bullying at work, someone who's just making your life shit. Write their name down in pencil and don't elaborate. If his name is Dick, write D-I-C-K in pencil. Look at it. Remind yourself of all the things that this person does to you that gets you down. Take your eraser and rub out Dick's name. Then I want you to write your name in pen on top of that. Better, write it in magic marker. Better still, write it in Sharpie pen. Better fucking still, do it with a paintbrush and paint. Then take your name and elaborate it. Right, bring on the serifs on the letter. If your name is Patricia, on the bottom do swirly serifs. Color in the P. Work your way around your name. If your name is John, start with the J. O, color in the O. Maybe do a little scene. The H, draw the H. Draw things you like inside it. And then the N, and elaborate, color in and fill it. Dick is gone. Your oppressor is gone. And John is here. That's magic. Use your favorite colors. Dick is gone. Your oppressor is dead. And you are now here. You will be amazed how empowering that is. How powerful that is. I'll give you another magic spell you can do. Those of you in America, you know the elections are bullshit. Go down to the election place, walk into the election booth, and vote for nobody, and walk out laughing. Well, vote, I've done that. I've got the last election I was at here. I walked in, I looked at all the names in the sheet, and it was how we did it. I live in a very rural area, so we didn't have a machine or a lever or anything, or punch. It was just simply a photocopied paper. Well, it was actually a printed paper of the candidates' names and photographs and colours, a little box, and you got this black marker, this big black crayon, and you're supposed to put in number 1, 2, 3, 4 because we have in your vote preference, because we have a proportional representation system in Ireland. I got the paper, I folded it up, I put it in the box with no one on it, and I walked out and I stole the marker and the crayon, and then I brought the crayon home, and then I used it to sketch out the lines for a painting. I won. It's that simple. This is magic. So no frustrations about the political party, no frustrations about the policies, no frustrations about my man not winning. I won. I won. And you can win too. It's that simple. Now, you're going to say to yourself, oh, come on, I can't solve all my problems in life like that. Of course you can't. No way. But what you're doing is you're building the foundation for the future going forward. Remember, the ripples in a pool still need the pebble in the middle. And the pebble hitting the middle of the pool, it's only a tiny little ripple at first. And then the second ripple gets wider. And this is the energy stream. This is the magic stream of energy building out. Building out, building out, building out. And by the end, you have like a ripple that's got, from one little pebble in the middle of a swimming pool, you have a ripple that hits the 6-foot deep end on the other side. And it doesn't matter if it hits the 3-foot shallow end on one end and the 9-foot deep end on the other. The ripple still gets to the top. It still gets to the top. But you have to cast that pebble first. That's the charge. And this is the second aspect of it, the charge. You must build it in and charge. So like if you throw a little pebble in, your ripple mightn't reach the banks, but if you throw a fucking boulder in, you'll not only reach the banks, but you'll splash back the energy to you. The bigger boulder is the bigger charge. It's the bigger charge. Now, how in a situation do you develop a bigger charge? Well, say this guy Dick, the Dick at work that's you've rubbed your name out written on top of it. Now that he's out of the way in terms of that, and any time you see him, you smirk to yourself, and you remember you rubbed out his name and wrote your name, John Bigger, or Mary, whatever your name is. Then what you do after that is, that's now done with. It's sorted, right? You're either going to get better at your job, people will notice you walking around much more confident, or secondly, you'll start looking for another job without having to think of it. You're not looking for another job because John has driven you out of the job. You're looking for another job because you're better than Dick. You're better than Dick. You have rubbed out his name out of your existence. He's no longer a psychic virus inside you. There's a lot to be said for these ideas of like, you know, who gives a shit and so on. This is why these people are happy, because they're not burdened by the neuroses of things they cannot change. This is all magic is. The basic form is taking something in your psyche and bringing it into manifestation. So when you have rubbed out Dick's name and written John's name on it, what you then have is a permit. You have a grimoire of your own journey. You have a ticket to the future that you didn't have before. And this is why you keep it on you, to remind yourself. It's now a talisman. It's now a talisman. You've done nothing to destroy him. You haven't cursed him. You haven't put black magic on him. You haven't stuck pins in a doll. All you've done is remove them from a piece of paper, turned it into a talisman. It's now in your pocket. And you have a license to drive into the future, a license to get free transport, a license to do whatever you want. This is your hunting permit. You're now hunting for the energy that you need to move forward. This is what you need. The energy to move forward. You now have a permit. It's not stamped by City Hall or the government. It's in your pocket, stamped by the only person that matters. That's you. And that is magic. That is magic. This is why armies have flags. Countries have flags. That's the permit to create the state. When you understand this, you're amazing how creative it becomes. You'll learn how to do other things. You'll suddenly find that your will is very much now focused towards a transcendental, transformative process. You're not going to happen overnight. You're not going to feel amazing instantly. But what you have now is the permit to move on. Now, if you have a permit to go hunting or a permit to fly a plane, it just means that at some point in the future you will go out hunting and you will get the plane. So you're on your way. You have that, and that's how you must see it. This is your passport to the future. And this is how you think in a magical way. Suddenly you'll find that life is much more interesting, that nothing is ever mundane anymore. This was the most amazing thing for many people when I was teaching my friends this process years ago, is that they would say things like, you know, Thomas, you taught me all this stuff, all these processes and stuff. You taught me how to make sigils, and you taught me how to make talismans, and you taught me how to focus my will. And I never noticed things before that I notice now, like the park I walk home through from work. I never noticed how more beautiful the flowers are. That's because the persons who was walking home from work, their focus had been taken off the assholes in work and their shitty job. It was released, and then suddenly the colours of the flowers in the park or the sunset became more meaningful. They're now enjoying life properly. You will find that things become more vivid. Vividness comes into your life. You have increasing levels of higher kinetic energy rather than depleted kinetic energy. You know, the old stereotype that shown cartoons in the old days, they show a guy walking around with a cloud over his head. In an old comic strip cartoon, that's how they'd show someone who was a sad sack or a loser, or someone who was in a depressive state. They'd have a rain cloud over their head. Well, that's literally how it is. You're creating weather warfare in your own mind. You're creating weather warfare against yourself. And people go out and they look at things like chemtrails and they think to themselves, oh, it's the Illuminati gassing us. No, it's not. But even if it was, there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. Not by just getting angry. Vaccines. Oh, they're giving vaccines to all the kids. Well, firstly, a lot of people I know that worry about this stuff don't actually have kids. So why are you worried about it? And secondly, there's very few countries where they can force you to force your kids to be vaccinated. Very few. And you want to know what the magic spell is? Pretend to be a member of a religion that rejects vaccines and you're safe. You're safe. You get away with it. Just say, I'm a member of some fucked up religion, and tell them that your church believes in this. Even if a bunch of parents don't want their kids vaccinated, all you have to do is get together, form a religion, get yourself officially recognized as a religion, and put down on this religious thing, we are against vaccines because we believe that it creates, you know, a path between us and our personal salvation. And then you've won. You've done magic. You created a church in order to do this. And you've beaten the system. You see, you must always use the psychopathic grid's own kinks in its armor to beat it. Look for the loopholes. All a loophole is a magical opportunity. All a loophole is an opportunity to get through that. Now, the Freeman movement made an enormous mistake by thinking that if they got Blacklaw's dictionary and used phrases like "I do not consent," that they would beat the legal system. And what they were basically doing was taking their shit magic that they hadn't really got a clue about and going up against the greatest magicians on the planet, the greatest magi's on the planet, the Law Society. And that's a futile sacrifice. Futile. My attitude to the law is I avoid it as much as possible. I don't go looking for it. My attitude to the law is it's like a crazy neighbor who lives next door. I say hello, I play the game, and I don't ask them over for tea or for dinner. And that's my attitude towards it. That's a healthy attitude. But a lot of these freemen went out looking for a showdown. It was driven by ego, and it was driven by a need to be a hero, so they could post a video of themselves in court, winning against the judge. Because you're never going to win against those people. Even if he throws you out of court one day because there's a backlog of cases and he's sick of the fucking sight of you, he'll get you another day. And that won't be on video. That won't be on video. That will not be on video. You've got to draw a magic circle around yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you literally go and get the Goetia and actually draw the magic circle in and around yourself. Or you go get a book on Enochian magic and follow those paths. Even then, even when you read those magic books, all you're really learning is that they're focusing their will and using magic to do it. That's all they're doing. It's extreme concentration. It's the same thing that how a mother who can lift a 2-ton SUV off her child that's had an accident, lift it up no problem. Her extreme focus of her will has charged her to the point where she has incredible strength. Actually, it's not incredible strength. What's happened is that the car is actually made lighter. I know that sounds weird, but we'll be talking about that later on in another show about in terms of the megaliths and how they actually got the stones up on top of these gigantic plinths. They made it lighter. Now, when I say lighter, I mean physically lighter. It's the same thing when someone holds your hand down and you push up and then you let go and you suddenly find your hand rising by itself. It's the same kind of idea. It's a charge of energy. It's very similar actually to Wilhelm Reich's orgone energy, but in a physiological sense. So the show will come in the last 10 minutes now. So those of you who want to learn about magic, first of all, realize what magic is. It's just the taking of something in consciousness and transferring it into reality. That's all it is. After you realize that, the second thing you realize is who has all the magic these days. The magic of these days belongs to politicians, TV, sports, advertisers, marketing. That's who has it, right? Why do they have it? Because they have the best will. All their power and all their money has given them the best will. How do you get will? Creativity. Creating solutions, creating ideas and originality, and pulling things out of your imagination and bringing them into reality. It doesn't matter what they are. If you say I want to paint a sunset, just paint a sunset. Well, how does that get me magic? It doesn't, but it's starting to process your will. So bring your will into focus. That's why artists have a huge part to play in this. Art and magic is the same thing. Art is exactly the same thing. Whether you're a musician, a poet, a painter, anything, a carpenter, anything, that's you're a magician. You're already a magus. You're already a magi. But you must now begin to see that. So once you understand the terms of engagement and the terms, the actual terms of combat with the control system, okay, it's about will. They have it. I don't have so much. How do I develop my will? Then you can begin to work on the exercises that I've told you. Drawing out the names of the things that damage and oppress and hurt you, rubbing them out, drawing the things in with your own name or anything to replace it, your desires and aspirations. You're sigilizing. You're learning about talismans, so do that. Get used to these kinds of ideas. Get used to it. Nothing is free. You're thinking to yourself, I need $1 million. I'm going to buy a lotto ticket. You're not going to win it. I need $1 million. I'm going to work 2 jobs. I'm going to work 3 jobs. I'm going to work on something and try and get it out there. I might not get the $1 million, but I might get close to. I might get a good money I didn't have before, and I'll develop my confidence. And confidence is just will. That's all confidence is. It's just a will. It's just harnessing and making the will more strategic and developing confidence in its stream of energy. That's all you have to do then. Great stuff. And then when you've done all this, when you've gotten used to this lifestyle, then we can talk about the real thing, the ritual magic. But I'm not going to suggest anything right now because I don't know who's listening to this, and you're not ready. But let's just say in a year's time, I might be ready to bring you into it. But from now on, I've given you practical advice here. I'm not a fear porn merchant, and I'll never lie to you. I just tell you how things have worked for me, what I know, and how you can use it yourself. That's all. And always remember that the world is never going to come around to what you want it to be. You have got to go around the world yourself. If you want to go visit China, there's no point in jumping up in the air and waiting for the planet to rotate China around to you. It'll never happen. You'll just rotate with the planet. This is a magical force in itself. But what you can do is work on the ability to get you to China. Start saving money. Now you're actually making magic. And now the will is the thing you have to work on. Forget it. It's the thing that keeps you special, that gives you power. And once you realize where that power came from, then you find that things start happening for you. But it's all about work. It's not about wishing. It's not about intention. It's not about visualizing. It's not about manifesting. It's about old-fashioned hard slog. But work is a wonderful thing. When you're working for yourself, you're a magician. When you're employed by somebody, you're basically a slave. I'm not putting down people who have to work. I work in a regular job at the weekends. I'm not putting down people who have to do that. We've all got to make sacrifice, but there's ways around it. There's ways to box clever and get back. And there's ways to detach yourself from it where you only see the bleeding thing as money. You only see it as money. I always said to people, all my life I've said to people, I don't want a job. I don't want a career. I want a job. I'm not looking for a career. I'm looking for a job. And I went from the worst ghetto in the north side of Dublin to working in the highest levels of Wall Street. How did I do that? I never wanted a career. I just wanted a job. I understood the terms that office building or that factory or that building site I worked on, and believe me, I've done it all, or that bar that I worked in, I've done it all, was just the means for me to get energy, to harvest energy through my labors, through my work, through my initiative. And that's how I got the money. And I was only interested in the money. I wasn't interested in being a corporate man. I wasn't interested in being a model employee. I never wanted. You see, your face on employee of the month is might as well be your slave wanted, slave found. You just go there for money. That's all you want. Money is energy. To go to a job just for money is the noble virtue. It's the noble focus of the will. It's the correct focus of action. But to go to a job for a career, I'm going to do a career, is the mistake, because you'll still end up at 65 dumped out on the street or in the coffin. The best thing to do is just to see it as a job and try to have fun while you're there. Try to turn your commutes into something powerful. Learn things, do things. I know it's hard work, but we get nothing for nothing in this life. Nothing. Everything comes with pain. Everything comes with a sacrifice. But you've got to do it, and it will work out for you. But the important thing is to get rid of your slave mentality. And I just gave you some examples of that. Stop voting. Stop protesting. Did that march in London achieve anything with the overthrow the government? See you next week, and feck them if they can't take a joke.